I had closed my laptop for the night, watching snow pile against my office window like the world was wrapping itself in silence. Being the CEO of a growing healthcare company looked impressive on paper, but most nights it just meant staring at spreadsheets and pretending success filled the emptiness that came after my wife passed. My 5-year-old daughter was the reason I kept going. Every morning her laughter reminded me there was still color in the world. That night, though, as I left the downtown building and stepped into the quiet swirl of snow, I saw something that stopped me cold. In the far corner of the parking lot, under the flickering light of a lamppost, a young woman sat on the ground beside an old sedan. The hood was open, steam rising into the frozen air, and 2 tiny infants were bundled in blankets across her lap. She was crying, not the loud kind of sobbing, but the kind where someone is too tired to fight the tears anymore. I almost walked past, thinking maybe she had someone coming to help, but then I noticed her uniform. A faded blue nurse's scrubs beneath a thin jacket. No gloves, no hat, just exhaustion. Something in me, call it instinct, or maybe the echo of every night I'd felt alone, told me to stop. "Hey," I said softly, approaching so I wouldn't startle her. "Are you all right?" She looked up, her eyes red but still somehow full of grace. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "my car just died. Was trying to get the twins home before the storm got worse." I offered to call a tow, but she shook her head. "I can't afford that. I was just going to wait until morning." I glanced at the thermometer on my dashboard earlier. It was 10 degrees. Waiting wasn't an option. I told her there was a diner open down the street. I'd drive her there, buy her dinner, figure something out. She hesitated, clutching the babies tighter. "You don't have to," she began, and I smiled. "I know, but I want to." Inside the diner, the warmth hit us like sunlight. The waitress, seeing the babies, cleared a corner booth without asking questions. I ordered hot chocolate for her and coffee for myself, and while she fed the twins, I learned her name was Emily. She'd been working double shifts at the hospital since her husband's deployment overseas, but recently the hospital had cut her hours. The snowstorm had trapped her after a 12-hour night shift. "I was just trying to get them home," she said, voice trembling. "The heater broke last week and the landlord said he can't fix it until Monday." Something twisted in my chest. I'd been in boardrooms arguing over funding for hospitals like hers, yet here was a nurse, someone who healed others, sitting across from me with nothing left for herself. When she finally looked up, she caught me staring, and for a moment the room disappeared. Not because she looked glamorous, she didn't, but because there was something so genuine in her tired smile. After we ate, I insisted on driving her home. The small apartment building she lived in looked like it hadn't seen maintenance in years. Paint peeling, a single light flickering by the entrance, I helped carry the babies upstairs. The moment she opened her door, cold air spilled out. She wasn't exaggerating. I wanted to fix everything right there, but I knew better than to offer charity that would make her feel small. Instead, I told her I knew someone who repaired heaters, technically true since my facility's manager could handle anything. She thanked me quietly, cheeks flushed with embarrassment and gratitude. "You've already done enough," she said, but something about her voice stayed with me. Driving home, I kept thinking of Emily's face in that lamplight, the snow clinging to her hair, the way she kept whispering to her babies like they were the only reason she hadn't fallen apart. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was meant to do more. I arranged for one of our company vans to deliver a portable heater to her building, anonymously. By noon, my assistant told me she'd received it and left a note at reception addressed only to the man from the snowstorm. It said, "Thank you, you reminded me that kindness still exists." Days turned into weeks. I kept telling myself to focus on work, but I'd catch myself wondering if she'd gotten through another night of cold or how the twins were doing. My daughter Lily noticed me staring out the window one evening and asked, "Daddy, are you thinking about Mommy again?" I smiled sadly. "Not this time, sweetheart, just someone who needed help. Kids have a way of knowing more than you say." A few days later, during a community charity event at one of our hospitals, I saw Emily again. She was volunteering in the pediatric ward, gently holding a sick child's hand, humming softly. The sight hit me harder than I expected. When she finally looked up and recognized me, she laughed, a bright surprise sound that filled the sterile hallway with life. "You again," she said. "Should I assume this hospital belongs to you too?" I grinned, guilty as charged. She teased that she should start paying rent for all the kindness I kept sneaking into her life. We began talking more after that. Coffee breaks turned into late-night calls about everything and nothing. She told me about her dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse, how she used to watch the sunrise from the hospital roof after night shifts because it made her feel like hope was still possible. I told her about Lily, about losing my wife to illness, about the guilt I carried for being too busy at work to notice how lonely she had been. Emily listened without judgment, her silence soft but full of understanding. It had been years since anyone looked at me like that, not as a CEO, not as a man who had everything, but as someone human. One Friday, I invited her and the twins to dinner at my house. Lily was ecstatic. She'd been begging for company with babies for months. When Emily arrived, bundled in a thicker coat this time, she looked nervous. But by dessert, Lily had declared Emily her favorite grown-up friend, and the twins were asleep in a makeshift crib beside the fireplace. Emily watched them with a quiet smile. "They've never slept this peacefully," she said. I told her maybe it was the warmth, or maybe it was the feeling of safety. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The snow outside kept falling, but inside there was only the soft crackle of the fire and the quiet beating of two hearts rediscovering trust. The following weeks blurred into something gentle, something new. Emily and I found excuses to see each other more often: a coffee drop-off at her hospital, a Sunday visit so Lily could help with the babies, a few phone calls that started with logistics but drifted into laughter. I began to notice the way her eyes softened whenever she looked at Lily, the way she never complained about her own exhaustion. She had this quiet strength, the kind that made everyone around her feel safe. One evening, after a particularly long day, I stopped by the hospital to drop off some equipment my company had donated. Emily was there, still in her scrubs, helping an elderly patient into a wheelchair. Her hair was messy, her hands red from the cold, but when she smiled at me across the corridor, something in me shifted. It wasn't attraction, it was recognition. The kind you feel when your heart realizes it's found home again. That night, as we walked to her car, I noticed her old sedan was gone. "Transmission finally gave out," she said with a small shrug. "I've been taking the bus, it's humbling." I didn't say anything, but the next morning I called my head of operations and told him to donate one of our company vehicles to a local healthcare worker in need. I made sure the paperwork didn't trace back to me, but Emily knew. She didn't call me out on it though, she just left a note at my office: "You don't know how much this means. One day I'll find a way to give back." Christmas came early that year, snow piled high, the streets glowed with lights, and Lily wouldn't stop talking about the tree we were decorating. I invited Emily and the twins again, half afraid she'd say no. Instead, she showed up with homemade cookies and that same shy smile that had first stopped me in the snow. The moment she stepped inside, Lily threw her arms around her legs like she'd been waiting all week. We had dinner together, and for the first time since my wife's passing, the house didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt full. Emily laughed easily, played piano with Lily, and when she held the twins near the firelight, the entire room glowed. I remember thinking that maybe the universe had sent her not because she needed me, but because we needed each other. As the night wore on, the snow outside thickened into a white curtain. I offered to drive her home, but she looked hesitant. "The twins are asleep," she whispered. "Could we stay a little longer?" So we did. Lily fell asleep on the couch beside the babies, and Emily and I sat in quiet conversation by the fire. She told me about her childhood, how her mother was also a nurse, how she learned that caring wasn't a job but a calling. I told her about my fears of raising a daughter alone, of failing to fill the spaces my wife left behind. She reached over, touched my hand gently, and said, "You're not failing, you're healing." That simple sentence hit harder than any business success I'd ever known. The next morning, I woke to the sound of laughter in the kitchen. Emily was making pancakes, Lily was showing her how to pour the batter, and the twins were cooing in their baby seats. For a moment, I just stood there, realizing how right it felt. The house that once echoed with silence now had life again. Over the next few months, Emily and I grew closer, not in grand romantic gestures, but in small, real moments. She'd stop by with dinner after long shifts. I'd surprise her with groceries or take the babies for walks so she could rest. The more time we spent together, the more I saw that her kindness was effortless, not something she performed, but something she was. Spring melted the snow, and with it, the distance between us. One weekend, I took Lily and Emily's twins to the park while she finished a shift. When she arrived later, she found me pushing all three kids on the swings, laughing harder than I had in years. She watched quietly before saying, "You're really good at this, you know." I grinned. "Good at what?" "At being human," she said softly. I didn't respond because sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Life began to weave us together in ways neither of us planned. Lily adored her. The twins started calling me Dada by mistake, which made Emily blush and apologize, but secretly it filled me with warmth I couldn't describe. One night after putting them all to bed, I found her sitting by the window, lost in thought. When I asked what was wrong, she shook her head. "Nothing, I was just thinking how strange life is. A few months ago, I thought I'd lost everything. And now it feels like I've found everything I didn't know I needed." I smiled, remembering that night in the snow. "You didn't lose everything," I said softly. "You just hadn't been found yet." That was the moment she leaned her head on my shoulder. And we stayed like that for a long time, no promises, no plans, just peace. Months passed, and Emily decided to finish her nursing certification to specialize in pediatrics. I offered to help pay for the classes, but she refused, saying, "You've already given me enough, let me earn this." And she did. She balanced work, motherhood, and school with grace I could only admire. When she finally graduated, I was there in the front row, Lily on my lap, the twins clapping in their tiny hands. When her name was called, our eyes met, and I swear the entire room disappeared again. That summer, we took the kids to the same park where she once said life was strange. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and pink. Lily ran ahead with the twins, and Emily stood beside me watching them. "You know," she said, smiling, "I used to think being strong meant doing everything alone, but now I think it means letting someone in." I turned to her and said, "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." She looked up at me, eyes glistening, and whispered, "Neither am I." We never had a dramatic confession, no perfect cinematic kiss in the rain. What we had was quieter, shared coffee, sleepy mornings, children's laughter, and the kind of love that grows not from spark but from steadiness. It was love born from kindness, the kind that doesn't demand, just gives. A year later, on the anniversary of the snowstorm, I drove us back to the diner where we'd first met. It looked the same: warm lights, fogged windows, the same waitress still pouring coffee with a smile. We sat at the same booth, twins babbling beside us, Lily coloring in a menu. I raised my mug toward her and said, "To the night that changed everything." She laughed. "To the man who stopped when he didn't have to." I shook my head. "To the woman who taught me that helping someone can sometimes save yourself." Outside, the snow began to fall again, soft and quiet. Emily looked out the window, her reflection mixing with the white glow of the world beyond. "It's funny," she said. "I thought that night was the end of my story. Turns out it was just the beginning." I smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "The best beginnings always look like endings," I said. And in that small-town diner, surrounded by laughter and the sound of snow against the glass, I realized something simple but life-changing: that sometimes love doesn't arrive when you're ready for it. It finds you when you're broken, wraps around you gently, and teaches you how to be whole again. As we stepped outside, the cold bit our cheeks, but the world didn't feel harsh anymore. Emily adjusted the twins' blankets, I lifted Lily into my arms, and we walked toward the car, a small family built not by chance but by kindness. The snow crunched beneath our feet, and somewhere deep inside, I heard that same quiet voice that once told me to stop. Only this time, it wasn't urging me to help someone. It was whispering, "You're home."